What's up, guys? Let's talk about Rome, the Roman Empire, ancient Rome. So yeah, people are always like, Lou, why do you like the ancient Romans so much? Is it because you're Italian? Weren't they all like, bloodthirsty rulers that conquered without mercy and ruled with an iron fist? Yeah, they did all that stuff. But, that's not why I like them. They did other stuff too, okay? They weren't all mindless killers. Um, so yeah, let's start with that question. Why do I like the Romans? Yeah, they got a lot of territory, but I want to say they influenced more than they did wiping people out. Sure, they did that. They were, violent, but they had to kind of like assert their rule, or else in return they would get trampled on. That's kind of like how it worked back then. You can't think now. You got to think like a person would think way back when. Um, yeah, but there was so many great empires before them. Did they just copy other empires? I want to say so much copying, they kind of like emulated or absorbed, kind of like Alexander the Great. Once he conquered his great rival, Persia, he dressed like a Persian, learned how to talk like a Persian, and portrayed himself as one. His men didn't like it too much, but you know, he was king, and that's what he did. And he, you know, created so many like not offspring, but like different forms of these Greco-Persians, pretty much, that existed into Roman times and became great leaders, having both that share heritage. Did something, and yeah, it was pretty monumental. But yeah, back to the Romans. So normally when they conquered, I mean, we'd like to say how was written anyway in the history books that yeah they salted the earth, burnt places down, game over. Believe half, because the fact of the matter is, when it comes to writing like that, obviously, to the victor spoils, which means, whatever empire conquers another entity or group of people, they have a slight influence in writing their history. Obviously, when Rome conquered, if you look at a map today, every country has its own name. So obviously, it didn't, stick their rule. Sure, there might be influences of Rome in regards to architecture, maybe even the Latin language, but as far as like a people, the only thing that comes to mind is like Romania, a little country in Eastern Europe. Transylvania, Romania. Romania, I believe, means land of the Romans. They're one of the only countries that, yeah, the only countries I can know off the top of my head that speak a Romance language. A Latin language, but they're surrounded by like all these Slavic states. So yeah, I guess it did kind of leave a lasting impression there. But anyway, for example, the Greeks, right? They were the top dogs, thinkers. Then the Romans came and were like, what do you think of that? You know, and if they did, rule hard and, cause mass destruction and, destroyed everything in sight and erased entire families, then obviously it wouldn't exist today, or would be, you know, a lack thereof, a different group of people. No, you know, in fact, they liked Greek so much that they kind of, portrayed themselves as that. Greek was actually a very well-known spoken second language. Like if you knew Greek as a Roman, then you were cool. You were on the cool list. You were like you could go in the party. You know, um, were they copycats? I mean, yeah, but once again, I don't take this as a negative. Like, I'm gonna take this out. No, I take this as I appreciate this, and I want to kind of pay a homage to it. That's how I think of it anyway. Maybe you think different, but you know, uh, and they some even emperors stylized themselves as Greeks or try to emulate Alexander the Great. They had appreciation for Greeks and Greek speaking people in general. So that just tells you about that. Uh, yeah, they did conquer a lot of lands. They set fire to a lot of places, burnt to the ground, but they kind of built it back up. Like for example, Carthage, one of Rome's greatest enemies, right? It's modern day Tunisia now. Once they defeated Hannibal, boom, went right to Tunisia, wrecked the joint, right? So bad. And then they built it back up again. And I mean, yeah, they probably had like Roman citizens there and whatnot, but I think relatively the population remained this, pseudo Carthaginian, group of people, along with Roman citizens, just like Egypt. Egypt had a lot of twisty and turnies. I mean, you had a Egyptian population with a Greek ruling class, and the Romans came in. So, like I said, back then, we should probably all take notes of this. They were all able to, even though like they were at war with each other, and whoever won, they were still able to like kind of gel together, which I think is kind of cool. And we have such a hard time doing that today. Like if we hate someone, we hate them. We want to erase them completely and just forget about it. That's it. As opposed to not joining forces, but like absorbing that culture, and not quite making it your own, but like this hodgepodge mix. Romans were more accepting of other gods. For example, Syrians, people from Antioch, which is like the ancient Syrian capital back then. It's in Turkey now, Antioch. You could look it up. A lot of people there worship a sun god named Baal, Baal, and yeah, and the Romans kind of were okay, and they identified him with their version of a sun god, and so on and so forth. But you have emperors who came from these regions who weren't of Roman blood. They could have been, Syrian Arabs or, Gauls from modern day France or whatever, and bring, part of their heritage with them and just incorporate it in Roman society or vice versa. So my point is, yeah, Rome did rule, and they ruled hard. They weren't so nice all the time. But what we got out of that was, a great history of, a group of people that, were not just known for dominating, I think, but introducing the rest of the world, to each other. I mean, sure, they caused destruction, but they were able to kind of mend that and, build bridges, from the west to the east somewhat. Alexander the Great did it a little better, but, there was, certain privileges. Like, for example, if you were in the spectrum or the sphere of, Roman rule, at a certain point in time, you became a Roman citizen. So you could have been anyone. You could have been a German or, an Arab or whatever, Spaniard. If you were under, Rome's umbrella, then you were a Roman citizen and you were regarded as such, just kind of how it went. And, you got to kind of appreciate that. Where we have a hard time accepting new people today, the Romans were like, let's give it a shot. Let's see what this, group of people could do for us, And if they do good, more the better. So there you go, Now getting to the whole, to the victors writing their enemy's history. I'm sure they influenced it somewhat, but like I said, the fact that we're able to use new technology today and distinguish, fact from fiction and use science to understand a civilization how it was meant to be and not influenced from other parties. I mean, you can't really, blame Rome, for that. They didn't, I mean, yeah, they probably, talked a bit, because they're superstitious people. What are you going to do? Of course, they probably talked bad about their enemies. Who doesn't, But as far as changing the game completely, like I said, it might have lasted up until a certain point, but I mean, you will always know this country for being this country. It was occupied, yes, but it didn't change the way they live or whatever. Maybe it did for a moment of time, but they'll always be this group of people. Maybe they'll have an influx of Romans at the time, or they might speak different or have their language influenced by other people. Like in Sicily, for example, their language, the Sicilian dialect, is influenced by Greek, Arab, the people that were there the longest, at the time. So there is, between the chaos, there is a form of harmony the Romans brought. Another point I like to say, like, what happened when, Rome fell? Don't you think the people that conquered Rome might have had a hand in writing Roman history? I don't think people really kind of thought of that. Romans are always portrayed as the bad guys, but when you think about it, they were conquered, they were sacked, and the western part fell. The East took a long time. It still prospered, became Christian. Modern times now we're getting into, well, not modern, but like medieval Renaissance era stuff. But the Western, Roman Empire did fall. And, who's to say, when the conquerors become the conquered, uh, their history could have been toyed with too, right? They had enemies. They had people that say, finally we could get even. So who's to say they, wrote something in that might have stuck today, or, came off as like, subjective. So there you go. I always tell people this. You want to know something, facts, whatever, we have Google. We have, I know people are funny with Wikipedia, but you have so many other sources. Britannica, I think it's relatively like untouched. So, if you want true stuff, you can kind of get it from there. So much more you can do your own research and figure this stuff out. But yeah, like I said, this is the truth here. I'm just, just kind of like dawned on me. I'm like, oh my God, yeah, of course people that conquered someone would have an influence and say how they get remembered, but it doesn't always last. You always get two different perspectives, and you kind of not pick and choose, but you can judge for yourself. You're intelligent, and hopefully most people know what's right and what's wrong. Even if you're unfamiliar with history and during this era and all that stuff, it's not that hard to look up. Like I said, it's the perception of thinking this group is bad. They try to get rid of this person and that person and change this history, and we only remember them for this. No, everybody went through their own changes and prospered their own ways. Some benefit off each other, some didn't. But they all, I think, borrowed and shared a history together, and did their best at mending that history. Like I said, Rome came off as the dictator type, but in reality, even though they kind of was led to their own demise, they outstretched their sources. They influenced, and people influence them. Just how it goes. So sure, you can do all the conquering you want, but if you hang around a certain group of people long enough, then you absorb not just their ideology, their persona, their religion maybe, but everything else, and then the blending happens, and there you go. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of, shine a light on that. I always get a lot of questions about, how, Rome was this way and that way, and, they're the bad guys, yada, yada. I'm like, no, they were the, biggest kids on the block at the time. That's it. Rome was conquered too. Rome's history was toyed with just like anyone else. But now, thank God, it's a modern era, and we have science and archaeology to figure this stuff out for us. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Hope you're all being safe and healthy. Stay safe. It's a new word. But yeah, like I said, I can't do this much, but when I can, I like talking to you guys. It's a load off, trust me. And yeah, knowledgeable. You might learn something sometimes. Or I might learn something from you. I don't know. Leave a comment sometimes. I'm here all the time. Sort of, kind of. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. And until next time, see you all later. Peace.